Every year, billions of dollars vanish. Lives are ruined, families shattered, and it all starts with one text. Hey, are you picking me up at the airport? Welcome to Stolen, hosted by former prosecutor Aaron West, a relentless voice exposing the brutal truth behind transnational organized crime and one of the most dangerous and underreported crimes in the world, pig butchering scams. These are not random frauds. They're global, organized, and devastating. Victims aren't just losing money, they're losing hope. This is the podcast where the silence breaks. Stolen. And now your host, Aaron West.
Hi there, friends. Welcome back to Stolen. I'm Aaron West, and I'm so glad you're here. What I will say is you are about to hear from one of the people who is on the ground, educating, seizing, and disrupting transnational organized crime. I'm so excited to have you meet Mike Clinton and see what real leadership looks like. This is a man who sees problems and fixes them, who identifies issues and brings people together to solve them, who has been able to bridge the state, local, federal, private sector gaps and bring people together for the purpose of helping victims and keeping us safe from transnational organized criminals. This is one of my favorite episodes, and I know you are going to enjoy it. I am so proud to tell you that Stolen has been sponsored by two amazing companies in the anti-scam industry, the anti-fraud industry, the collaboration of information industry, and that is Scamnetic and BioCatch. BioCatch just dropped a report on scams, a global report, and what it shows is exactly what we thought it would show. Scams are up in North America, in Europe, in Latin America. By putting together reports like this, BioCatch is giving us the evidence we need, the data that shows that we're in a scamdemic. And I'm grateful for a company that is taking the time to measure and report on what's happening. So thank you, BioCatch. Thank you, Scamnetic, for your support of this podcast and your support of getting this education out to the community. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Stolen. We are here today with one of the oldest members of my crypto coalition, one of the oldest, one of the people I've become closest to in this whole organization of fighting transnational organized crime. And who would have thought that one of my closest friends would end up being a detective in St. Louis, and that he would talk us into coming to St. Louis in January for our conference coming up in just a few months. So I'm delighted to introduce you guys to Mike Clinton, and he's an amazing detective. And Mike, welcome to Stolen.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, definitely a pleasure. And I know our program would not be where it's at today without connecting with you. Obviously, Alona, Sharf, Hogan, Scott Simons, and the entire crew of the usual people in the coalition, because it was a lot of guessing and a lot of let's just throw something at the wall, see what sticks when it comes to these kind of investigations.
Yeah, it's really a village. It really is a community of amazing detectives, analysts, prosecutors who really care about doing cryptocurrency investigations. And we will get into that on this. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about your current assignment and how you got there.
Yeah, so I am a St. Louis County police officer in St. Louis, Missouri. To put this into perspective, St. Louis County Police, we are a county police department. We aren't a sheriff's department, so our chief is appointed. So that kind of gives it a little bit different breakdown when it comes to law enforcement in our region. But that's my primary agency, and then I'm assigned to what's called the St. Louis Fusion Center Terrorism Early Warning Group. Fusion centers were stood up post 9/11 as a huge gap in intelligence and information sharing between federal, state, and local partners, as well as international partners now as well. It's continued to evolve. So that was one of my kind of dream gigs, is this position. I've had success 3 straight times in starting and being on the groundbreaking formation of new units at our department. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. New challenge, new kind of thing. Came in 2022. At the time, it's kind of funny. Was my boss wasn't a county police officer or supervisor. It was a fire captain. who did the cybersecurity program for the Fusion Center, which is an interesting aspect. So we always joke that, we had a hose, I had a gun, we come out, put out the cyber emergency for people. Had a good working relationship with our federal partners and our international partners already. And that came through my previous 2 units. We were integrated with the Marshals. We were integrated with the FBI task forces already. And that unit, with the body cam program, I worked with the U.S. Marshals and the FBI, DEA, and everybody else in the St. Louis region to help them with their programs because we were first to that punch on that. But it kind of just helped blossom this position. And one of the first things that when we came in was kind of a thing that was eye-opening was our legal counsel, Mike Fagan, a WashU a law school professor still. He's our constitutional law instructor for the police academy. Wish I had him when I went through the academy. And he's still our legal counsel today. He helped found the Fusion Center. He's retired assistant United States attorney. He came up to me and said, nobody's doing anything about this in Missouri. You should do something. And so I look at the piece of paper, and it's cryptocurrency, and I'm just like, this seems like something that could be done. I was like, let me see how crazy this might be. And so then that's when I search. That was in 2022. But the crypto thing was a whole new world, but we obviously had seen it with ransomware groups, so that was our angle. Like, we can do this with ransomware. We didn't realize the scope of how big of a problem this was, and still is today. So we kind of just went with it. Went to the National Computer Forensics Institute, which hopefully your listeners have heard about at some point in the several podcasts, but it's ran by the Secret Service. They have a great class, the Digital Currency course, taught by Casey Doherty, former Secret Service, now works with TRM Labs as a global investigator. He got me in that class. It was great. That was my hook. That was my introduction into you. And then I was like, you know what? I know nobody's doing anything about this. I queried our own report system. I queried IC3, the Internet Crime Complaint Center data, and I realized there was a lot there, and there's a possibility there could be something good that can happen from it. And so we sat down, looked at it long and hard, and we realized we got to do something at the state and local level. We can't just let the feds do everything. And then they have certain thresholds too. They have other cases too, just like we do. So we're like, I'm in a unique position. I'm 100% grant funded. And while I do belong to the St. Louis County Police Department, the Fusion Center is a unique beast in the sense that we host it and run it. Our director is a county police lieutenant, but everybody else other than one analyst is all from other agencies. So we can work with the private sector and then other law enforcement and public safety units and things like that. As you sit back, if you're in law enforcement and you're listening, you're going to look at your cases and realize this is more of a problem than you probably thought to think about. And hopefully if you are listening to this, you already know that we're all preaching the same thing. But with St. Louis, it came down to like, okay, how can we scale up? How can we get more people involved in this? Well, what are we really good at a Fusion Center? And what are we really good at with the county? We're really good at creating task forces to solve our problems in the region. But ultimately, the task force model worked previously. I've been through Ferguson and the riots and the civil unrest. That's where I got my first taste in task forces and multi-agency collaborations and jurisdictional assistance. And so we went that route. Initially, our St. Louis Regional Cryptocurrency Task Force is what we called it. We went live with that in 2023. Then we went, wow, this isn't enough. And then it was IRS Criminal Investigations out of St. Louis, to which now today we have 2 agents that sit with us full time. So that's where that's kind of developed too, in a place that hasn't existed before, is we never had a footprint with the IRS. It's phenomenal money laundering unit. We do a great job with crypto. That blossomed into a great relationship. Then we had Secret Service St. Louis, and then it was the FBI St. Louis. We had both their white collar, and I'm assigned to their cyber squad as well, some task force officer with the St. Louis FBI. Then the Eastern District of Missouri U.S. Attorney's Office, obviously, because we thought initially most of our seizures are probably going to have to go federal because no one's ever done anything at the local level in Missouri. So then that kind of pivoted into, well, I want to try something. I want to see if we just can do this locally, because our victims deserve a response for, $10,000 is sometimes people's life savings. So it shouldn't be a threshold issue for our federal partners if our local partners can step up to the plate and actually do something. So a lot of these cases are easier than what people realize. So when we did that, we decided to expand into our prosecutor's office here in St. Louis County. I've been training them ever since. And I think a lot of times, you were a prosecutor, so a lot of the times, I think it's just getting the right people in the right places at the right times kind of thing. We got lucky. We got a new prosecutor was coming in, getting appointed. Our previous one ran for the U.S. House and is now in the House of Representatives. And so we got a new prosecutor who's very forward thinking, and she allowed another prosecutor to just start interacting with me. And it was her background, which is what kind of got us into that. Her background is she's retired FBI counterintelligence. So she understands disruptions, which is largely what we're able to do in the crypto ecosystem, is disrupting the transnational organized crime groups that are doing this, getting seizures out of it as best we can, or at least having them to restart their infrastructure to launder their money.
So I think one of the issues that plagues this particular crime is that local victims are reporting to local law enforcement and are not getting assistance. They are reporting to the IC3 and they are not getting any responses. But what you've been able to do by checking all the boxes, by interacting with federal law enforcement and interacting with local law enforcement at the same time, is you've been able to bridge that gap in a really amazing way that I don't think we're seeing in other parts of the country. Tell us why it works in St. Louis.
I think it works in St. Louis, by and large, is we've always had a pretty remarkable relationship with our federal partners as well as our state and local partners. So we're used to that interaction, but largely I think it comes down to 2014, the Ferguson riots. We had more interaction with our federal, state, and local partners and more introduction to that than ever before. It was day to day to day, and it was like Groundhog Day. I worked probably for, I think, 30 straight days in August of that year, followed by another 20 straight days in October of that year, followed by another 30 plus days in the grand jury decision time. And this went on again. It really finally kind of slowed down probably a year and a half ago. So we're 10 plus years, I think, year 11, finally, from when Ferguson occurred in 2014, and it's just now slowed down enough to where we're not having to stand up our units or anything like that and just prepare for civil unrest. That was kind of every time it would come up. And so because of that, we had so much integration. We had the FBI involved. We had all the different federal partners assisting us, giving us the resources, because ultimately it came down to we're just tired. We need the help. And then we realized that we could provide value to the feds, that the feds could provide value back, is they don't know the area. Right? And I think it's largely because a lot of St. Louis prosecutors and officers, detectives that go federal find their way back here because St. Louis is a unique environment. Unfortunately, we're commonly up there in the top, 10 most violent cities in the country. So that's kind of why that is. But that's good for us in the terms of that relationship that you mentioned, is that unique thing that's nowhere else in the country, is because we're forced to do it. We had to do it. If we didn't do it, we would let down our victims of crime in St. Louis and our region. Being able to have that 30,000 foot view that in the Fusion Center affords us that opportunity to not only lets us, our mandate is we will work with any law enforcement agency, private sector, and federal law enforcement and federal entities. That's pretty rare. You do get that in other parts of the country where there's not a great relationship with that FBI special agent in charge in that one field office and like the sheriff or something. Whether it's politics or just local going-ons, and people are like, I don't want the feds in my business, or the feds going, we're better than the locals. Just it's all cultural, and that's where we hope that St. Louis expands and becomes that model for the rest of the country. Reach out, talk to your partners, because if you're not doing it now, you're not going to do it when you have a case. So
let me stop you for a second, because I think that there are some really important nuggets in what you've said that are replicable in so many locations. And you and I have spent a great deal of time trying to figure out what to do about this transnational organized crime problem. And one of the things that you have immense expertise in, and that you and I agree is really an amazing way forward to sharing intelligence, is by using the Fusion Center model. So I just want to make sure that people are understanding the Fusion Centers. You've explained that this was a response to what happened in 9, and we are going to now start sharing information in a much better way. And we're going to bring together local, state, federal, and put them in Fusion Centers. Are there something like 80 Fusion Centers in the United States?
Correct. There are 80 recognized Fusion Centers by both the National Fusion Center Association and the Department of Homeland Security, which is our primary source of funding.
When I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to bridge that gap between all the information that's collected on the local level, what people know is happening in terms of couriers, in terms of gold bars, in terms of grandparent scams, and bridging that with the high level intelligence that our federal partners should be accumulating. And you and I have discussed that the Fusion Center model could be an amazing place for that type of intelligence collection. Tell me more about your thoughts on that.
I kind of think the Fusion Center model works a lot of ways for not just cyber and crypto, but for other crimes. But having one that can just focus in on cyber and crypto related crimes and then be able to expand to the HIDA centers, which are the high intensity drug trafficking, essentially fusion centers, to get stuff to them because they're going to have more knowledge in the drug trade than we will. But having something that works in that way where it's local, state, federal law enforcement, it's private sector. That's one thing I think a lot of people don't realize is not every fusion center is created equal. We are very fortunate. We engage with private sector and invite them in. We share intelligence with them if it pertains to their industry, if they're critical infrastructure and things like that. And crypto falls under critical infrastructure in the sense that it is in the financial world. And the banking sector and the finance sector is a piece of critical infrastructure that's very important to the operation of the United States. It's very important to protect. And if you don't protect it, bad things can happen, whether it's just standard money laundering, just a bad guy just laundering their criminal proceeds, or it's nation state level. You have foreign countries, one of them being North Korea, funding their nuclear weapons program, the weapons of mass destruction program with stolen U.S. assets, whether that is cash, gold bars, cryptocurrency, hacking, things like that. And if we don't engage in that kind of fusion center model and method, I think it's a lot of stuff being left out there because, like you said, the state and locals, we have on the ground stuff that people are reporting directly to us through general 911 calls or coming to the station to file a police report that is actually connected to the stuff the feds are doing at a higher level and gathering that intelligence. And now when we're putting it together, it's making sense. And you're like, it gives you that much more to be able to go after them, to go after the bad guys, to get international cooperation that probably might not exist just knowing one piece of the pie. So the Fusion Center kind of idea is what I like about it. And we've kind of done that in a way with Shamrock and what we've done with the National Triage Team, because a lot of stuff's coming out of that triage team and I'm picking up on it and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I recognize that address. I have a case involving that. Hey, I just got all that frozen. And they're using a tool that didn't, that was an exchange or something, so they're still trying to follow it. And I was like, no, I've got this already. Call me. And I think we're realizing it's highly effective.
Amazing. Yes. Okay. So then let's go through. You get into this business in 2022 with your crypto stuff. I'm starting to get the pig butchering stuff in March of 2022. Our team is making a seizure, getting that money back in the hands of victims. We start the Crypto Coalition in October 2022. And at that time, the Crypto Coalition is 85 members of local, state, federal, international law enforcement, and we start meeting on a regular basis to discuss what to do with this. And that turned into Operation Shamrock. It turned into 2,400 members today of local, state, federal, national, international law enforcement that are actively doing this work. And from that, we developed the triage team. So tell me more about what the triage team does.
Yeah, so the triage team, it's headed by Scott Simons, who's a Greenfield, Wisconsin detective, and Matt Hogan, who's a detective with the Connecticut State Police. And then I kind of sit in the background and help them with the infrastructure side of things and kind of the ideas behind some of the things we're doing. And where that is a partnership that developed with TRM Labs through Chain Abuse. It's the only other platform out there other than IC3 that kind of usefully ingest that data and actually ask for the correct data. And what we're doing is we've got about 20 trusted investigators from across the country that are also analysts or sworn law enforcement. They do regular work on their own cases, but they're a volunteer group. Some are authorized by their department to actually participate and get overtime for it because they know they're helping in the grand scheme of things, like mine. So what we do is we'll reach out, we'll trace it real quick, see if it's a viable lead or a viable case, whether that means a hidden exchange that cooperates with law enforcement or it's an exchange that we have no chance in because, they're an illicit finance exchange or they're a darknet market group or a lot of Southeast Asia kind of over-the-counter desk that are operating that we just don't know anything about and don't keep records. So that kind of all will depend on where we go with it. But when there is a viable lead and there's a potential for a seizure, we'll reach out, identify the victim because obviously they want to be contacted, and we'll then identify the police department that should best handle it, whether it's state law enforcement or federal law enforcement. In some cases, like South Dakota has been phenomenal. Their federal U.S. Attorney's Office up there will seize anything for their locals if their local prosecutor's offices aren't comfortable with it. That's huge, because that was one of the biggest barriers to this, is getting agencies to be able to seize it, because it's not as easy as it sounds, seizing cryptocurrency. It's not like seizing bulk cash. You can just pick up the cash, put it in the evidence, and then it's good. This is a very complex process for a lot of agencies that aren't capable or haven't experienced this before, and that first time is daunting. But we'll work through them and work with them. If they haven't experienced this before, we'll help them write their search warrants or subpoenas. We'll help them go through the process of the several different ways that there are for law enforcement to be able to successfully seize and operate a seizure wallet and things like that. And then we start looking at the bigger picture data and, hey, how many of these cases are our cases touching? And we've had great success, especially Scott and I, at connecting our cases, right? We're in the Midwest, so a lot of our victims are seeing the same thing. Wisconsin's seeing the same thing as Missouri, which is kind of where my original task force that was the St. Louis Regional one turned into the Midwest Crypto Task Force, which is in 15 states. It's because all of our crimes were connected. All of our crypto addresses were connected. In one case, we were able to successfully, because of triage, a case came in, and then we all separately got our own cases that came in around the same time, and they were all connected. Jake Tazinski up in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, Scott Simons in Wisconsin, G, who's at the MIAC, which is the Missouri's Fusion Center, Missouri Homeland Security, as well as St. Louis, and then we had St. Louis Metro. So we not only had two in St. Louis, we had St. Louis County and St. Louis Metropolitan Police. So we had all these cases that suddenly were like, well, we already talk to each other every day because we're all in triage. This made this really easy. Who's at best to seize all of it, because it gets convoluted and complicated and there's a bunch of fees involved when you're seizing crypto. Is it easier to do it all at once with one agency? And it turned out being, we went with Scott, provided all our cases to it, and we took it federal because it was easier to get it back to the victims. Sometimes we have to think about what's easiest to get back to multiple victims in multiple areas. Sometimes the federal process works so much better. Other times it just depends on the state, their process works better. So it's kind of triage in a nutshell, is providing back to the victims, giving the victims a chance that somebody's going to look at this, and then we use that opportunity to train local law enforcement or state law enforcement, in some cases federal law enforcement, because just because they're in the federal system and federal agencies doesn't mean they know about crypto either. Because just like all of us, they get assigned something. They're like, I don't know what this is. And when you're not comfortable with something, you're not going to do very well at it unless you're that naturally inquisitive person like I am, and I want to learn more about it because I've never seen this before. So that's been huge with triage. And I don't know the number. I want to say it's somewhere over $20 million in assets frozen through triage since we've been running it, which was $20 million that wasn't. And yeah, that's just a drop in the bucket in the overall pool of illicit cryptocurrency transactions that are out there. But that's $20 million back in the pockets of our victims in the United States, and in some cases other foreign countries, because we have help there. That's huge, because like I said, $10,000 is someone's life savings, $20,000. And then we've seen cases all the way up to $10 million. So it kind of just depends. But ultimately, if we didn't have a triage, there's a lot more victims that wouldn't be getting help. There's a lot more agencies that wouldn't be involved now. A lot of agencies have since stood up dedicated units to do this because they saw the value in what we were doing. And they're still in contact with us. They're still in the coalition. They're very active in the coalition. And that's huge once you get that buy-in, because now we've expanded our reach and capabilities too. And we take that training aspect, just like we do at the Fusion Center, and we apply it to everything with triage. We'll walk them through. We'll talk to their prosecutors. We'll talk to their judges. We'll talk to their detectives, their command staff. I've gotten into heated conversations with command staff at some agencies, but then ultimately I show them, and then they grasp that concept, and I compare it to just normal stuff they see and do every day. And then I show them the connections to overseas crimes. And you mentioned, we did one in-person presentation for the National Fusion Center Association, but we did something unique, which is probably one of the first it's ever happened. And we did a real-time intelligence collection presentation where I was physically in D.C., you were overseas, and you had footage from recently raided compounds, which just added that much more to that presentation. And I still today use those videos to show people, and that's usually the hook, line, and sinker where an agency then goes, find me somebody who wants to do this. We have a detective, we have an officer, we have somebody at our agency, an analyst that will be interested in this. Let's try it. And that's all I need. I just need a willingness to try something and to change for once, because law enforcement is known for this. We dig our feet into the ground and we don't want to change because change is scary, and we know what we know and we don't know what we don't know. And that's always a fear in law enforcement, is to go ahead and take that leap. And so triage it's existing is
amazing
huge.
Success. It's amazing success. It came from the concept that I didn't like, that if you happen to go to Brooklyn Park, Minnesota and get Jake Tuzinski, you're going to have someone who knows what he's doing and who's super involved. If you go to Idaho and run into Brad Thorne, thank God, because Brad Thorne will get this done for you. But what I didn't like was if you were in other places in the country, you would not be able to get this information. You would not be able to get this help. So if you go to triage, what you will get is an answer. So many victims, that's what they need. They just need to know what happened to their money, and if there's any legitimate way they can get that money out, because they're hit with their secondary scammers, and secondary scammers are making them promises about what can happen. So it's nice to be able to give them information with authority, information from vetted police officers who know this better than anyone, what can be recovered and what can't. And I love what you're saying about you are connecting dots and you're making an educated decision about which way to pursue this. And that's what makes so much sense, is we all have different tools in our arsenal, whether you're state, whether you're local, whether you're IRS, whether you are Treasury, wherever it is that you come from, you've got different tools in your arsenal. And you guys are, through triage, we're doing this, but even more importantly, through your task force, you're looking around and saying, okay, this is the big case we have. What do we do with it next? And I really believe that this is the way forward for how law enforcement as a whole of government solution needs to be looking at how we handle these cases, because they are borderless. People are going back and forth from state to state. Couriers are picking up all over the place, and we know for sure that the international piece of this is borderless. Before we get to that, let me ask you a little bit more about a problem you identified along as we were working together and what you've done to fix it. So tell me about Verify Wallet.
Yeah, so Verify Wallet, that has a unique, humble beginning as well. But the biggest thing is you and I and everybody else in the coalition are like, hey, we need to talk to each other, but the email router is not working that well in terms of doing a deconfliction or figuring something out, who's connected, all this type of thing. Internet Crime Complaint Center information is great, but that's also not a deconfliction tool either. There's other systems that are out there that already exist in the law enforcement world for the drug side of things, or a target investigation, so you're not, sending SWAT teams to the same house at the same time, or an undercover unit also operating with another undercover unit, because that's happened here in St. Louis before. You don't want that kind of thing to occur, but nothing exists for cryptocurrency exclusively, or really cybercrime exclusively, because that's a unique data set that is, your system wasn't built for it, it doesn't work. And so we initially were going to have the Secret Service run it. Tony Malik, he's a Secret Service agent. He's one of the founders of Verify Wallet. Him and I, this is that humble beginning thing, we worked together. He was a St. Louis County police officer. We were in Ferguson together during the riots, so that relationship was there. And we were just talking, and I'm like, why don't we just do this ourselves? Because initially we were going to use the Fusion Center money for it through our grant funds. However, that got frozen at the beginning half of the year, so we didn't know what that would look like. We don't know and didn't know what a future grant cycle would look like, if there would be money for it. So we just kind of bootstrapped it ourselves, and we built Verify Wallet, soon to be deconflict.com. So we are going to more than just cryptocurrency. That update is coming out later this month. We're super proud of it. It goes from just a deconfliction tool for crypto, where all we're doing currently is simply pasting in that address. That's all it is in the scam URL. If there's a scam URL associated, so a bad website, those two data points are then ran against every other entry, and then also ran against all of the other places, all the same places that our Chain Analysis, TRM, Merkle Science, all those crypto blockchain analytic companies. And so we're able to compare that right away and then say, hey, you should probably stop here because that's an exchange. You don't want to flag this. Go back. Here's some other things, and link this together. And then once you do identify an in-common address with another agency, it'll pop up, It'll say, hey, connect, and you go offline, get in your email each other, and take everything outside of the tool, because that's all it's built for. Is it's just that initial, hey, somebody else is interested in it. This is the scam type. You guys should reach out and we'll collaborate because you probably have something the other doesn't. And that happened with John Miskirk in Bergen County, the prosecutor's office. I realized that he touched a case, and then I had a piece of the case that he didn't have. He had a piece I didn't. I was like, hey, when did you get your search warrant back? What was the time period? It's like, oh, this was the time period. This is what I got back. I'm like, well, I have this for this tool that you didn't know that they could reach out to you about, or, you know, whatever that process was. At the time they weren't cooperating, but now they were. And so then we just shared our returns to each other, and our investigation was able to continue because we didn't have the data that we needed from each other. And why reinvent the wheel? Why rewrite more legal process? And then you're also creating a burden for the companies that are receiving 20, 30 different legal processes for the same exact case, which is ultimately why one of the reasons I decided to bootstrap it myself. I had a seizure with a crypto exchange that was delayed almost an entire year because over 30 agencies from around the globe kept submitting seizure processes with it. And ours was easy. It was cut and dry. The exchange agreed with us. We worked on it and they knew, but every time it came in, they had to delay it just in case. And so now that people would actually know and be able to look, oh, hey, this agency's actually got the funds frozen, we'll give them a call first. And so now with our update coming, I kept kind of seeing a problem with open source intelligence. John Miskirk's the guru for that. So what we've done now with this new update is you have an OSINT tab that'll have all the cyber and crypto related open source intelligence publicly accessible at the fingertips of investigators all in one platform. We've leveraged artificial intelligence now to help write summaries, but also find large interactions with other crypto addresses and write you a summary on why you should be looking at it, to the point to where, hey, you might want to check this address out because it has a lot of exposure. It might be to a crypto exchange, or it might be to a darknet market. And then we also are adding in a bunch of other features that will be coming out over that course of that time, which is huge. But the biggest one is we are changing our name, obviously, from Verify Wallet. We're going to Deconflict as the name of it now. And because it's simply that, we're deconflicting with law enforcement across the globe. We're up over 500 agencies as of this morning. It's free to law enforcement. No cost, no strings attached. You also get access, right now, I think we're up to 2 years of free licenses in terms of crypto tracing tools, blockchain analytic companies. That's Merkle Science. You get 6 months for free. You get, I think it's 6 months to Crystal Intelligence, which we partnered with Operation Shamrock for 45 scholarships previously over the last year. You get 6 more months for free to that, but you also get free training. That's huge when you get free training, because that's the biggest hindrance to a lot of law enforcement agencies is the tool cost and training costs. So we're doing something about that. Then we have Global Ledger. You get 7 months for free to them. And then Nominus and AML Bot, you get 60 and 30 days. There are other tools that are out there. But ultimately is you get to try it, see what you like. Because a lot of these tools, it comes down to user preference. Obviously, some have better intelligence than others because they've built up, they've been in existence longer, they've been doing things longer, and then others have a huge influx of cash flow because they've been around forever. The chain analysis and the TRMs of the world have a whole lot more data, a whole lot more tool usability than some of the other tools that are either free or at a lower cost. You ultimately have to do what's best for you and your agency and what you're going to use. Because I can give you the most expensive, coolest tool out there that costs, $20,000 a tool or a license, and if you're not going to use it, you're not going to do these cases. But if I can find you a tool that you understand and you get and you grasp and you like and you're going to use it, I'm good with that. And that's ultimately is putting these tools in the hands of investigators globally for free, and then let them go off the site and go and negotiate with these companies if that's what they want to do and purchase or do whatever they want. There's no pressure on any of them. It's just you don't have an excuse now. You can't say that we don't have a tool or we can't afford a tool. You get 2 years right there for free. That's huge. Can get you that start that you need to justify to your stakeholders that you guys need a tool dedicated to this. And then in addition
honestly,
to that, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think at the Coalition, we have looked at the gaps very seriously. And we've looked at the gaps of what do you need to be in this business, and you need You need a tool, which we've provided you on multiple occasions. TRM was the first to give us tons of tools. Then Crystal followed suit. You've got Merkle Science in the group now and others. That's amazing. And so you have the tool and training. Shamrock just finished 2 weeks of training. And we're about to go to more training I'm going to ask you about in a minute.
And
then we've given you a community, and quite frankly, the community is the cherry on top of everything. The community is what enables you to do this work with people with very humble egos who are here in this business to help victims. And it's an amazing success story that the two of us have been on, and it's one of the proudest accomplishments of my career is building this community with you and Sharf and Alona and Dave Barry and Hogan and all the rest of our crew. It's been amazing. So what we also have done is for the past 3 years, it's been in the state of California in the winter, but we thought, why not go to St. Louis in the winter? We hear it's lovely there. So Mike Clinton, tell us what you got planned for us in January in St. Louis.
Yeah, so we are taking the, I believe it used to be called the California Crypto Conference. We're taking it on a road show. Louis gets to be the first one. I'm sorry, it is in the end of January, so you're going to have a couple options. It could be a blizzard, or it could be 70 degrees out. That's the thing with St. Louis. We never know. But it centralizes it to the country, but also the globe. Lambert International Airport is onboarding a direct flight to London. We have a direct flight over to Germany. So we have a lot more accessibility for everybody. And if you're in the Midwest, just if it's under 12 hours, we'll drive. So the fact that it's in St. Louis, we'll be able to pull the central states. But then the coast, it cuts their travel time in half. So if someone from California is going to New York or New York to California, it cuts that travel time. It cuts cost because the Crypto Coalition Conference, it's free. You just have to pay for your airfare or travel and your hotel room, which I think will shock everybody.
And tell us about the hotel. Yes. Yes.
The hotel is the same place where the conference will be held. It is the Hyatt at the Arch. It's right across from the St. Louis Arch in downtown St. Louis. It's less than 15 minutes from the airport. So it's easy to get ride shares, or if you rent a car, things like that. There's parking in the parking garage that does cost a little bit more. But the hotel room, we got it at a law enforcement and government rate. It's $129 a night. That's unheard of for most of these types of conferences. We've worked hard with the Hyatt. I've attended events there and other conferences there that are local and here in St. Louis. It's a beautiful location, but it's also the first time everybody's in the same hotel. The conference, nobody has to walk anywhere. No one has to drive anywhere. It's all in the same location. It'll be secure. We'll be feeding you breakfast and lunch, buffet style. So that's huge. So we're super excited about that. We're also excited to have more than 2 vendors.
And what about the keynote?
And the
Tell us about the keynote.
Is probably what everybody's most excited for is Tigran Gambarian, former IRS CI, formerly at finance. He's now with Kraken. He will be our keynote speaker, and will be just telling us everything. I've left it open to him. He can tell us about what happened in Nigeria, or he can just talk about his previous cases, or what he's doing now that's new, and really just educating law enforcement because he likes to do that. And that's where it came into huge, kind of having IRSCI here in the Fusion Center is one of our new agents here. Former Secret Service, worked with him at Europol, and then worked with him at finance. And now he's back on the government side. So having those relationships, St. Louis has kind of really been able to reach out and connect with everybody. And we're bringing a whole lot more in. There's a whole lot of cool new things that we're going to be able to do. It's 2 days. It's phenomenal. It's a great networking. If you didn't attend the previous ones, it's where some of my best working relationships have ever kind of occurred, is in that conference in California. In fact, it got me another detective here in St. Louis assigned to me because we took him and his supervisor from his intelligence unit out with us, knowing hey, we need to figure out a way to get him in. Within the first speaker, which was Marty Burke from Australia, within that first presentation, I got looked at, and he says, "You have him. He's yours now." And now he's doing crypto and cyber with us here at the Fusion Center, and that's huge because it was a 2-man show, and now we have 5. So it grew. He was the first one to kind of get on board with that to expand our unit. So that was huge. So this is a great conference for not just cops and detectives, but analysts, prosecutors, even judges, if they're interested, can come to this and learn a whole lot.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity because so much it's drivable for a good portion of the country. And if you just want to drive out there for free and get a good dose of the hardest working, brightest, most innovative team that is in this space, I think you'll have the same experience that Mike Clinton's people did, where they thought, gosh, this really is a thing. I think we need to open eyes a little bit bigger about the massive threat, and that it's a lot bigger than maybe the one-off cases that you're seeing in your jurisdiction. This is an opportunity to see the big picture and to see that you're not alone in it. You've got allies all over these United States and abroad who are in this with you. Amazing event and one of my favorite times of year. So, Mike, as we close this, tell us what you're looking forward to in the next few months. What's on your agenda?
Well, obviously, finishing out the schedule for the conference and finalizing a few more things with that. That's huge on my plate. Continuing to grow our relationship with our prosecutor's office. It's been phenomenal. I taught them their continuing education course a couple weeks ago. But kind of huge news for us, and maybe you'll get a sneak peek when you come out, is we've been building a new building that is exclusively dedicated to our intelligence apparatus and a new fusion center. So it's from the ground up, brand new. We own it. It's part of a precinct and the rest of our intelligence wing, so we can all work and collaborate even better. And new technology, new everything, and that'll help huge because we've just acquired our space up here. So a move-in date, it's slated to open, and we're going to be moved in and operating in February. It's just a better chance to expand our operations, grow our cyber program and our crypto investigative program, but also better serve, everybody else that is participating in the coalition. I think you've got one more of the Shamrock series. I think someone's got this month. I believe that is Shannon, probably. I think Shannon Alberg is going to do the NW3C course this month, and then we have November, and then your closeout in December. So finishing off those will be huge, and then going right into the crypto conference at the end of January. So that's kind of what's on my plate.
So, Mike, you are a role model. You are doing the work. You are in the space and making it safer for victims every single day. So thank you for spending time with me today. I'm so grateful, and I'm so grateful for the work that you do for all of us in this country. So thank you.
You've just heard the truth. Now, what will you do with it? Subscribe to Stolen and share it with someone you care about, because anyone can be a target. Visit OperationShamrock.org to learn more, get resources, and join the fight. And follow Aaron West on LinkedIn. Stolen is real stories, real people, and a crisis we can't afford to ignore.